about 2 minutes at the end of the piece. And it's based on the vocal repertoire is called. No, you don't do it. Yeah, what you play, what yourself is absolutely
نه بکنم سه از کالیجون که همونجور در تمیز کنم اگه ما یک لشکری من باید هم آنگینا رو بزنیم باید حرف بزنم خوبه بچه
انرژی هالوسینیشن کم‌کاری استفاده میکنیم خیلی اینو نگیم چی بگیم امکانی شده رفته
نه
ایشون نمیدونست که میشه کجا بدیم من شد به تیمورتون
پناه بعد نیست بگه سیگنیچر کانادا
زمان پشت معنی چایی گرفتم کافی نگرفتم
نه یه کافی باید بده مشکل
اینا قطعه تو جفت این چیزهای ابتدایی رو نمیدونم چه چیزهایی اسمال بیزنس های کمی بهتر رو ببر ولی مثلا سان فرانسیسکو جاهایی که خیلی پروگرسیو میشه این بلا رو سره
چون پروگرسیو میشه بکنم کول کول که میشه
اون میشه ایدئولوژی میشه ایدئولوژی وقتی بشه دیگه هیچ چیزی نداره منطقی میشه
YouTube guys. I know. I'm just catastrophizing.
Is this going to be live stream? ولی همه موزیسیان‌ها با بچه برنده بردیم تورنتو
Good morning, everybody. I just want to let you know that we are going to wait a little bit before getting started as people are filtering in, so we'll probably start about 5-10 minutes after the hour. So please relax and enjoy yourself until we begin our show.
Everything conditioned. صحبت
شما امشب میایید اسمش هست متروپولیتن یونایتد متروپولیتن چرچ یا چیز باشه سلام خواهد شما صحبت شما بخیر Just give me 2 seconds. Not 2 seconds, like maybe 10. It's over. 2 seconds.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at Walter Hall. They are so pleased to have you here at the Contemporary Iranian Music Symposium. My name is Farzaneh Hemasi. I'm a professor of ethnomusicology here at the University of Toronto's Faculty of Music. And it is my pleasure and my honor to be moderating this panel today, where we're going to hear diverse perspectives on contemporary Iranian musical performance, presentation, and research. Before we get started, I will do our land acknowledgement. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have this opportunity to work on this land. So a few notes about how today will unfold. First, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction to our panelists. Then we will have a brief performance by our own Mehrdad Jafarirod on tar. Then we'll go through a series of conversations and musical and video clips of compositions and pieces that our panelists have either composed or have written about or are involved in presenting. We'll take a brief intermission at 1:15 to 1:30. That may happen in the middle of our conversation or it may happen at the end. I'll keep my eye on the clock so we all get a little bit of time to walk around. Then when we come back, if we have time, we'll do a bit of a panel discussion on topics related to contemporary Iranian music. And for the last half hour of our time together today, 2:30 to 3 p.m., we will open the floor for questions. A mic will be handed out and you're encouraged to ask the panelists questions. Before we get started, even into the next part, I want to thank Norbert Pillay for inviting me to be a part of this panel and for putting on this new music festival every year for a number of years now. So this is really exciting, and thanks also to Ryan McClelland, our interim dean, who has been endlessly supportive of this endeavor. Okay, so you have been given a program, but because not everybody reads the programs, I will give you a little bit of the program myself. Starting at the end of our list here, we have, I'll come back to you, Mehrdad, but we have Reza Vali, who is our Roger D. Moore Distinguished Visitor in Composition and a very special guest here today. If you've been to any of our events this week, you've heard a number of his compositions. Then we have Dr. Afarin Mansouri, who is an internationally acclaimed composer, curator, and opera artist, who is based here in the GTA. And we'll be hearing about her recent compositions as well as her work as a presenter of and a curator of opera as well as a composer. Shahab Paranj is visiting us from UCLA. We're very glad to have him here. He's an Iranian-born composer. Everybody here is Iranian-born, even me. So he's a composer, conductor, instrumentalist, and educator, and he is currently at he's the artistic director for the brand new Center for Iranian Music at University of California, Los Angeles, as well as being a faculty member there. Next to Shahab, we have Hadi Milanlu, who is executive director of the Canadian Golha Orchestra, a relatively new ensemble based here in the Greater Toronto area. We'll learn a lot more about the Golha Orchestra today. In addition to this, Hadi is also a doctoral student in the ethnomusicology program. Next, we have Associate Professor of Music Education and Associate Dean of Research at the Faculty of Music, Nasim Niknafs. Nasim Niknafs works on a variety of topics. Today, she'll be sharing her research with us on Iranian rock music. And to my right is Kaveh Mirhosseini, a composer, conductor, percussionist, and researcher of Iranian folk music. Kaveh was responsible in great part for last night's performance. We had an excellent concert. I commend him on a great job done. Kaveh is also a doctoral student here in composition. And finally, going all the way back to our next, to the end, we have Mehrdad Jafarirod, who is a performer of tar and setar and a doctoral student in composition at the University of Toronto's Faculty of Music as well. So we have composition very well represented here today, as is befitting this symposium. So we're going to get ourselves all oriented by listening to Mehrdad play a little bit. Thank you, Mehrdad, whenever you're ready.
Thanks. slight change of plan. So I was going to play tar, but I'm going to play sitar now, and I'm going to play in Dastgah Isfahan, which I think fits best with the theme. And later we're going to talk about this Dastgah. We're excited to have Dr. Reza Vali with us today, and okay, I'm going to perform a piece in Isfahan. It's called Char Mizrab Isfahan, and it's from Dastan Ensemble.
begin our discussion of specific musical examples with Ustad Reza Vali's, some of his works. He's selected a few pieces that he'd like to talk about today, and please open the conversation however you like. I'll switch, hold on, let's go through these. There we go. I have your Esfahan queued up whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, you actually heard a beautiful, thank you so much, Mirta.
Beautiful performance of Isfahan, and so I encourage you to come tonight concert, which is at the Metropolitan Methodist Church, and they are performing actually a piece of mine that's called Isfahan, and this piece was commissioned by the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, which is one of the world famous orchestras, and in 2017. And I basically, it was some kind of a big challenge for me, because I do not really write music in Western, in European system anymore. And orchestras are based on actually European system. It's a European, medium. And I didn't know what to do really. I didn't want to write a European piece and then put a little bit of kind of exotic melodies on top of it. So it's kind of Orientalist in a way. Not that I have not written Orientalist music, I have written a lot of Orientalist music. A lot of my folk songs basically are Orientalist music that you have been hearing really. These are all based on, including the pieces that you heard last night, if you were here. And so, because the foundation of this are really European, because I wrote it before 2000. After 2000, I just completely changed my style, and I completely turned away. So I had a lot of sleepless nights, and then decided to really just go for it and write a piece that is based on the Persian modal system called Dastgah. Dastgah, D-A-S-T-G-A-H, Dastgah. I hope that we will expand this and talk about Dastgah and talk about the Iranian modal system a little bit more. But then I decided to choose the Dastgah of Isfahan because, as you heard, part of the, part of the tetrachords that are based on the Dastgah is like a melody. It's like a minor. So you heard a little bit of the minor. Did you play it in C? It was in C or in G? In C. Yeah. You heard a little bit of C minor when Merdad was playing. So I actually did do it in G because it's much better with the strings, and so then I'm not going to go into the detail of the piece, but it has all the microtones that the Isfahan has, and I recorded the microtones, I sent it to the player, and I did also what I did here. Also, I developed a software that the performer can actually push the microphone on the keyboard, and you send it by email, and they can actually open it on their iPhone. So it really helped, technology really helped to connect, to do this dialogue, musical dialogue. And then what we are going to, the clip that I'm going to play for you is at the end of the piece, and it's based on a melody which is called Naghmeh in the vocal repertoire, and it's called Kereshmeh in the instrumental repertoire. We have vocal repertoire, instrumental repertoire. And Merdad, if you give me a G, I'm going to sing it first, and then I'll ask you to play this, but you have to play it in G.
Playing G, okay. It's not exactly G, so it's killing a bit, like, but I'm going to.
Yeah, that's it. Give me a G. No, that's how this melody goes. Die, 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 ما سرخوشان مست و دل از دست دادگی هم راز عشق و هم نفست با مبادهی ما را بسی کمال ملامت کشیدند تا نقش خود ز ابروی جانان فتادهی. Okay, first we're going to hear Merdad playing, and then we're going to hear what it actually turned out in the orchestral version. Now you heard this, that the microtones, in fact, that he's actually, the way that he finished it, and that's a typical for, that actually makes the difference between the Dastgah of Isfahan, the Awaz of Isfahan, and the Western version of it, which is melodic minor, harmonic minor. That the notes that you are standing and the microtones are very, very important. But the orchestral version you are hearing is at the end of the piece. It's a full orchestra playing, and it's a march really. It goes yam bam yam bam dam bam ram bam bam yam bam da dam da da dam dam da da dam ba bam bam ba bam bam. So I had no other option than to actually bring the microtones and fit it, equal the microtones. But the microtones actually occur in the other part of the piece. So now we will hear right at the end of like 2 minutes at the end of Isfahan for orchestra, which we'll be performing it tonight. Orchestra. That was the premiere, 2018, conducted by Manfred Honeck.
If I could add something here to a theme that has come up in your discussion of your piece, that is something that I think we'll hear several times during the course of this conversation, is the challenge of changing a repertoire, an existing repertoire that is essentially developed on solo, soft instruments, to the main instruments and ensembles of the Western art music world, which are large orchestras, right? So this is not just a transposition, it's not just a matter of the already quite complicated issue of adjusting our tonal system, how we might play the sorts of scales and modes that we hear in Iranian music, but also to a completely different texture, volume, amassing of resources to create this music. And I think this is a fantastic example. I'm so glad that we were able to have this one shown today. Thank you for that. When you're ready, we can talk about Lorestan if you like.
Okay, the next clip that I wanted to play for you, the reason I chose this is because you heard it last night, if you were in the concert. You heard it, the version that I really am in debt to Kaveh, because he really wanted to do the my folk song set number 10. Let me give you just a little bit of a background. I started writing, folk music based on folk music, starting from 1978. Really, it just came completely by accident. I was a modernist composer, believe it or not. All my music were just because I went to Vienna to study, and it was the height of modernism. And I was a young composer, like many young composers. In fact, we have a lot of young composers in Iran now that they were so fascinated by modernism. And I don't blame them. I don't blame myself now. And I was fascinated. I was writing really these modernistic pieces. But then I wrote a piece called For Persian Folk Song. I think if you guys were here in one of the concerts with the voice, you heard just a little bit of that. And this is, the piano is very atonal, but the voice is completely just a very simple folk song. And boom, this became such a big hit that I was encouraged to writing, yet another set of folk song, yet another set of folk song, yet another, and so on. To this day, I have 18 sets of folk songs, each of them between 4 to 8, songs. And the piece that you're going to hear is from folk song set number 10, which, by the way, you are actually going to hear it on Tuesday if you come to the Contemporary Ensemble concert, and you're going to hear the original, which was for chamber ensemble and voice. And Kaveh insisted that he wanted to do, the first 2, songs. And I said, okay, so we did it. The one that you're hearing is the second song that you heard last night, and it's called the song from Lorestan. And it goes like this. یه گلی چای سمن، یه گلی تای چمن، تازه شکفته، تازه شکفته، دلم تازه شکفته، نه دستم بهش رسه، نه خوش میفته، نه خوش میفته، دلم تازه شکفته، نه خوش میفته، دلم تازه شکفته. Okay? And Sinai was sitting there. She did a fantastic job.
Superstar.
So we are hearing the original now with the orchestra, and the soprano is Janobedi, and the orchestra is the Boston Modern Orchestra project, and we recorded this in 2006.
Okay, here we go. Thank you very much for that. We'll come back and discuss it later. And thank you, Martha. John, you can be seated in the audience if you like. So we'll move over to Afarin Mansouri, and we have our first example from her. If you'd like, I can start with the music. Would you like that, or would you like to start talking first?
You can start with the music.
Okay, let's start with her prelude for orchestra that was commissioned by the Toronto Symphony Orchestra, and it's a very recent composition from 2022. And let's listen to a bit of this Mithra.
thank you and how grateful I am to be part of this panel, and how much great is to be seated in a place that once I was a student in front of my two mentors, Dr. Christos Hatsis, Professor Christos Hatsis, and Norbert Halle. Thank you for having me today. And it's an honor to sit beside our Ustad Vali here and talk about my music after his music. Is such an honor. Mitra was commissioned by Toronto Symphony Orchestra for their 100th anniversary celebration. When they commissioned me, they said that the piece will be a part of the celebration of diversity in Canada. And it put me in such an interesting situation as a female Iranian Canadian musician. I am a fan of storytelling, and when you are selected among your nation to present music from Middle East, it's a huge job. My job was to create a prelude just in 3 minutes. It's much harder to say something in 3 minutes of orchestral music, so it was a very challenging composition for me. How to decide about what a story I want to share with the audience in just 3 minutes. That represents not only the Middle East and Iran, but also represents the voice of women, as we all know what happens to the women of the Middle East during years. So I came up to choose Mitra because she's a legendary character, and she's one of the only goddesses in the Persian mythical stories that we hear. She's the goddess of love, justice, and the story of Mitra really struck me because apparently she was told by Son of God she was given a carriage of 4 horses representing the 4 natural elements to go and fight with the darkness. And of course we all know that these are all symbols for wisdom and knowledge, and she goes to fight with the darkness with those horses. Musically speaking, I don't know if you heard it, I tried to represent these galloping horses in my rhythmic motif, sometimes starting in the middle of the piece, going to the end. And the other thing I had to choose was a sound that can bridge the 2 worlds. I'm not, I mean, there is a poem that says, "Ta be danja rasid danish man, ke bedanam hami ke nadanam." My knowledge got to the point I translated into Farsi. It's one of our very well-known expression that you study and you get achievements up to the point that you understand you know nothing. And my knowledge of Persian music is, to be honest, I admit it right here, is nothing. But what I understood during my research was that chargah, there is a dastgah called chargah, which is mostly closer to the sound that can be in dialogue with the Western trained audience and the music that they used to hear. So I chose the base of my composition on that with the flattened second and the sixth, because then I could have changed the tetrachords and have more musical motifs written for Mitra. Another story about Mitra is that she was born on winter solstice, and it's a day that it's celebrated by Iranians known as Yalda night, as we go to the longer nights. So the piece, as you heard, started with the melody of her birth, that she comes to the life, and then she's given this courage to go and fight with darkness. And that's how it was created. And then at the end, there's a victory and triumph I wanted to have in the piece. What was very interesting, which is more not related to the music itself and the motives and how I composed it, was what happened and the timing, because I believe as creator we are vessels for our music to be born, and there is a force that guides us through creating something, and then once that thing is created, it becomes its own entity and finds its own way to the world and does what it's supposed to do. For Mitra, when I was commissioned, I had no idea what this piece will be doing later. TSO liked the piece a lot. They actually reprogrammed it. It became part of the school educational program. And when we entered the movement, I'm sure you all now know Women, Life, Freedom. It was right at the time of the Toronto Culture Days, and Maestro Gimeno decided to perform Mitra again. And I was really, not very happy about the whole situation, and they planned to use Mitra performance, and it became another tool for educating the audience for the first time in the music scene of Toronto about what's happening in Middle East and what's happening to the women. The team was giving a lecture about the incidents, and at the end, Master Gimeno asked me, like he normally shake hands with the conductor, but he actually took me to his stand on his podium as a symbol of the solidarity with Iranian people. And I was shaking when I was up there because I thought, well, Mitra, are you a real creature? Because she was the goddess of love and justice, and I think she became timeless in a way, and through this piece she could, do something that raised awareness about the situation in the Middle East.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Afari John. This is another theme that I think comes up, several themes that come up in our discussions, is when Iranians, composers, just like any ethnic group, but I think particularly Iranians, are called upon to represent their people and to represent some kind of complicated mixture of politics and apolitics through their music on stage. It sounds like you handled that beautifully and that it turned out well for you. I'm glad.
Thank you. I was not actually thinking about the movement when it was created,
yeah.
But as I said, I mean, it's an entity that I believe finds its own way. But thanks.
Yeah. We have another, I don't want to skip anybody's music, so I'm going to mention, we're kind of going a little bit over time, so I want to at least give you a chance to talk about Culture Land, because I know that's a really important new venture for you. Just for a few minutes, and then maybe we can play a very short clip of the opera that you're working on. So right now on screen, we have an image of the Culture Land Opera Collective, which is an organization that Afari Mansouri has a very strong part in, and an image from an opera that is in development right now. Is that right, Afari? Refugees?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So this is another aspect of her work, and another aspect of many contemporary composers and scholars' work is not only performing, they're composing, right, but also creating opportunities for others to perform and to find, to foster community and to grow the possibilities for performance related here. So I'm going to play a brief clip just so you get a chance to experience the vocal music that Arfarin is also writing. So I'm going to start here, and I may need to fast forward, so please be patient. would you like to say one or two words about that so we have some context for it?
Absolutely, thank you. This is an aria, it's sort of an aria from the Refugees Opera, which is a large-scale opera under the development right now. The librettist is Dr. Jennifer Wise. It's in English language, and it was written based on an old text, but it's rewritten and revisiting basically what we are dealing these days as the crisis of the refugees and exploration of human and psychological themes, the conflict and the humanities relationship with the focus on women. The opera is a very large scale one. It has 4 female chorus parts as well as other casts, and it's about the story of women seeking refugees coming to a country that is more liberal, and we witness everything that happens to them, which is really aligned with the things that we see happening throughout the globe. This piece is called You're Free to Love, and it's actually when the people of the new land are welcoming the refugees. The section you heard has nothing Persian about it in music of it, but the whole opera includes a lot of modes from the region of Middle East, including Iran. I have a sheet of more than like 15 modes that I've been working to create the tonal center of this piece, this whole opera based on. There is a lot to talk about about this opera right now.
Hopefully we'll get to some of that as we go.
Yes, I think the
question
time
and
is, but
answer.
thank you for introducing Cultureland. Just want to mention what Cultureland is, and then I'll be here if you have any question later. Cultureland, I found it's a collective with the mission of introducing new operas and bringing workshops with the primary focus on Middle Eastern culture, whether it's language or instrumental writing or the vocal. That's what we do, and I don't want to take the time from my colleagues, but I'll be glad to talk about it later.
Thank you so much. Shahab John, would you like to start with music or would you like to talk?
I'll start saying some words about the piece. We're gonna hear
Dotoy.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. This is wonderful what's happening at the University of Toronto. Thank you everyone who initiated this festival, especially what happened last night and today. This is a great news for Iranian community and also University of Toronto. And I'm very happy to be part of this. So I was born after the revolution, and we faced a lot of challenges in Iran after the revolution, but what we learned in my generation and also Kaveh generation, she's a little younger than me, but we learned that to not give up as easily as they command us, meaning that sometimes we don't have to fight directly, but we choose a path to not basically giving up our goals and dreams. So when I moved I had a career as a performer for many years. I was percussionist, tombak player, and I was fortunate to work with a lot of great musicians in Iran and outside of Iran. So when I started composing, going back to what Dr. Vali mentioned, we were all fascinated with this modernist music around the world. I remember I was writing a piano trio, and and I showed one movement to one of my friends, and I said, what do you think about this movement? And he said, Shahab, this is beautiful, but you know, this is different from when you perform. When you're performing, it is actually something else that is so very personal to you, and it has a voice that I don't hear it in this piece. And in fact, that conversation was a great lesson for me, which I did not hear from my teachers, but my friends. So at school told me this, and I started thinking, okay, what should I do to compose a music in a way when I perform tombak? Which brings me to the place that I grew up learning Persian classical music. I was also a cellist and I learned Western classical music and repertory. But somehow when I was performing cello and performing tombak, it was two different things. It's like I had two different brains. So I wanted to get closer to when I play tombak, when I'm composing, basically. And this was a great adventure for me, because the challenge was to compose in a way to get closer to the essence of Iranian music that I wanted to get influence from. So the piece that we are going to hear is called Diyar. It's a string quartet. It was commissioned by San Francisco Conservatory and just premiered several months ago. And it is very personal in a way, because philosophically, musically, it's very, close to all the concern I had for many years about myself, my music, and my beloved Iran. So each movement is actually representing one musical tradition in Iran. Start from Lorestan. It's a funeral march called Chamari, and then comes to East Khorasan, which we're going to hear it, and then goes to South, and goes to the center, the Asghar music, and comes back to North and Northwest. So somehow these musical traditions are different, but there is some kind of connection between those. You know, musically maybe it's not too audible for you to hear what are the connections between them, but I would call it's a soul, an essence of Persian classical music that brings them together. And this is the layer that we don't talk about Iran that much. Iran, beside all these political games we hear in the media every day, from Fox News, I mean in America, Fox News and CNN, or I don't know the Canadian versions, but yeah. So there is a layer in Iran which was developed for thousands of years, and that is the diversity aspect that exists in Iran for thousands of years. These people, this group of people coexist organically for many years without even thinking about it, that they are different, if they have different language, if they have different religion. So this is the great achievement in Iran, and I hope there is more opportunity to see this and to talk about this, because somehow that can actually help us through all this transition we have in the future. But going back to the music, this particular movement is from Khorasan, influence from Khorasani music. So what I do is actually I use a technique, Skratudura, for changing the tuning of the strings to get closer to the dutar instrument, because open string is very useful And what I do, I use the technique of dotar, which is similar to flamenco guitar technique, rasguiado technique. We call it zakhme. There is a lot of amazing rhythmic patterns exist in Khorasani music that I somehow got influenced, but still this is mine. So this is combination of 9 and 13, but still is, it's a pulse. It's not just something that I wanted to make something complicated. I still see it as a dance music. So let's hear a little.
Sure. Just so people can picture a dotar, at the beginning we saw a setar that has 3 strings. A dotar is very similar, but it has 2 strings. Do.
And the music, it's very different from setar music. Because these dotar and tambur are they're ancient instruments. There are some statues you could see. It's for like around 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, and these statues, they're naked, but they have instruments. So before they were actually wearing clothes, they were playing instruments. So please.
you so much for that. I think I'm just going to continue my own pattern of drawing out themes that I think we're going to talk about somewhat later. Two themes early for me came out. One is thinking about, in the last discussion with Iranian music, we talked about Iranians being oftentimes asked to represent the diversity in a Canadian or an American landscape. You're talking about the internal diversity within the Iranian plateau, within this land, which isn't apparent necessarily to people who are from outside of the region. It's incredibly multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic, and multi-religious group of people who have lived and shared this landscape for a long time. So when we think about what sounds and what sources we bring into Iranian music, we think not of just the Persian majority, which is the main group that has been fostering the Dastgah or modal system, but also of the range of other regional sounds. So I appreciate that you brought that up. Another thing that's come up with each of our panelists so far is the idea of Western modernism as a kind of a starting place for contemporary composition, a home base, if you will, for people who have been educated in composition in both in Iran and also especially within the West. And then this sort of process of unlearning or relearning or continuing to research in order to come to a place that feels more representative of the kind of language that you want to use at this particular time and in this particular place. So I think that's something else we can think about collectively moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, Persian, I mean, we have different genre in Iran. When we talk about Iranian music, we have, pre-Islamic or ancient music, we have religious music, we have Persian classical music, we have folk or regional music. So there is a diverse musical tradition that exists, and this is a great opportunity and resources for composers. That's why we are all fascinated with this, because when you think about the level of complexity that exists in, for example, Dastgah system, or it's just great resource for you to just have this adventure and introduce it to the world. So in a way, you can have a unique voice, but also it's closer to your soul. And I think in a broader aspect, that can also help us through this journey to introduce, to find ourselves in contemporary time, because if we don't know what's happening in the past, and if we cannot create knowledge about ourselves, then we cannot say who we are. So this is very important. To do.
I'm going to applaud for that.
Thank you.
Shahab John, we can play a little bit of your percussion if you like. Would you like to, or would you like to? It's up to you. You'll never say no, right? After we have this bit of performance, this bit will take a break, but I wanted to play this and give you a chance to show some of your contemporary, your composition and your performance, because this role of performer and composer are often, they're blended for many of the people on stage. And this, of course, is not uncommon in Western art music or Western contemporary composition, but I think it has a particular kind of significance in the Iranian frame, because in traditional music, the role of composer and performer are not so separate, right? As a person is improvising or working within the modal repertoire, they're also composing or drawing on pre-existing resources for their new creation. So I think this is a good chance to...
Yeah, which is something that I talked about it earlier, the concept of improvisation, and that is related to the essence of music. I mean, improvisation existed in classical music, in Western music too, but after 16th century, because of the development of the notation, it become, forgotten art. So now a lot of composers, performers, they are thinking, to consider having, but when you think about a great composer like Mozart, Beethoven, they were improvising all the time, and this is something that we don't do anymore. So it's just, I think it's good to see more composers involving in performing.
So I'm going to start somewhere a little bit in the middle to show, give you your moment in the spotlight.
That I was exploring this, concept of getting closer to composing based on my own, improvisation and getting closer to myself. But so what we have in Iran in performing percussion, we have different style, and there is a lot of performing tombak. You get a lot. It's a very unique instrument because you get a lot of different colors when you know the instrument. And I was trying to explore the same thing with with this instrument, also including daf and all the rhythm that is traditionally developed with daf, especially in western part of Iran. But the main concept was this 17 pattern I had, but it was a polyrhythm 17 against 12, which you just heard it come back playing that 17 against 12, but then it goes farther. You see this, polyrhythm between other instrument and tumbak and daf itself, and then it breaks down to 10, 7 against 5, 10 against 7. But again, I'm not doing this for the sake of being writing complex music. It still is a dance music. I will still see, okay, if there are people, they are able to dance with this. So that was this is my last thing I wanted to say. I wanted to compose in a way that is accessible to people, even who are not musicians. I'm not going to sacrifice or compromise my, technique as a composer, but I have to work so hard to write a music that is accessible to people.
Thank you so much to the first three panelists who spoke. We're going to take a 10-minute intermission, so that let's try and come back by 1:30 if we can, and we will start with Nasim Nafs, and we will continue. So enjoy your break. We'll see you in about 10 minutes.
اول صحبت میکنی بعد مقدمه من فکر کنم مقدمه میگم بعد قطعه اول صحبت میکنم این پخش میکنم بعد قطعه دوم صحبت میکنم این پخش میکنم
شکل کجت قربون اون روی سیاهت قربون اون دود و دمت قربون آب لوله هات قربون اون سگ پزیات قربون موش و گربه هات قربون اون برف تنت قربون آتیش نگات جیغ و فریادت برام عجیب نیست دیوونگیتم دوست دارم ناز و اطوارت برام مهم نیست سر تا ته شهر در بست
Lest we think that all contemporary Iranian music is within the realm of art music, we have Nasim Niknafs, who is going to speak with us a little bit about another vein of contemporary Iranian musical creativity. Take it away, Nasim.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for me. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate a lot of my colleagues and all the panelists here to finally make this event happen. It's been a long time in the making, and for years, Farzi and I were trying to make such a thing happen, and now we're very excited and grateful that a lot of our colleagues and our interim team also finally making this happen. I want to begin with a quote that I just recently heard from Ruby Lerner, who is a very prominent figure in arts in the North America, coming from the US, by playing with Michelle Obama's quote, "When they go low, we go local." And this is what I have finally figured out that I'm trying to do within my scholarship and research. That Farzi asked as part of some of the questions in the panel, what made you do this kind of a thing, the composition or your scholarship? And for me, it was, it might resonate with some of you in the room that I have a love-hate relationship toward Iran. When I was studying for my doctoral degree, I was very adamant that I do not want to do anything music education related about Iran because it was too close to me. I was not ready and prepared to look back what happened to me, why it happened, and how it happened. So I did kind of research that made sense to me at the time. Improvisation is part of my psyche and upbringing, and for a lot of us Iranians in the room, we always had to be very resourceful, and usually things were not working out. And Shahab also mentioned, it's a story of struggle, but also happy struggle. And when there is no struggle, we create struggle. We are very good at that too, but it's a beautiful and musical struggle. So when I finally finished my doctoral degree and I left the US, it was there that I got my doctoral degree. The position opened up here and I came here. My mentor, who's now retired, Dr. Lorian Doloff, she told me, what would you like to do as part of your research? And finally I opened up. I said, I want to tell the story, that story that I've been struggling with. I know a lot of us also in the room have been talking about it today. I'm a born and raised small town girl from Babol, Mazandaran. Yes, yes. We've been talking, we're gonna have hopefully another concert 2.0. We're gonna play some Mazani music. So one of the musical genres, my soundscape growing up was very eclectic. My mom was into 60s prog rock music and traditional Iranian music, Persian music. My father was so much into poetry, reciting, and naqali, Shahnameh or epics of kings. So we were raised with a lot of poetry and music around us. And that is my soundscape. So I used to listen to everything, and it was all around me. And a lot of musique Los Angeles. Thank you to Farzi, who really unraveled that music to a lot of people in the world. And I want to mention that her book got an award, by the way. Yes. But specifically, rock and prog jazz music, that whole realm was quite a good, lovely escape for me out of the post-revolutionary era. Like, these are the kinds of music that we were supposed to listen to from Seda Sima or the radio and TV, public radio and TV, and then at school we were supposed to do tawashi or Quranic recitation. So there were some things that we were supposed to and obliged to do, and there were things that we were doing behind the closed doors. And those were really intriguing to me. Even though leaving the country, I realized that rock music and that heavy metal music is very masculinized, and it's not really looked at favorably necessarily outside of Iran. And for a lot of reasons. We know that, for example, Trump is using a lot of that kind of music for his own campaigns and his own nonsense. But for me, it was very, it opened a space. It opened quite an opportunity and space for me to dig deep and not deal with anything else. The noise within rock and heavy metal music brought me so much joy because there was too much inside noise that it did not want to deal with. So anyways, when I finally left to Tehran, the capital city of Iran, and it's a very, very intriguing city for whom in this room who haven't experienced that city, I highly recommend. It hasn't been really the focus of a lot of city scholarship and urban scholarship outside of Iran, but I think it's a very unique city that needs more attention. Way more attention. So, long story short, I was studying, and one funny anecdote, when I got into college and university, I was lucky that our president was President Khatami, who opened up the cultural doors, and by the time that I became of age to go to university, he said that people who do not play Western, who do not play Persian classical music, they can go into their related fields. So I was playing piano all my life. And again, I was very much into Russian composers because it was more of a heavy metal piano, so that was my thing. For one of my birthdays, my brother gave me a whole t-shirt of Prokofiev and Rachmaninoff. Like, I was that kind of a weird teenage. So by those kinds of repertoires, I got into playing piano in university, but it was called Performance of World Music. And when I left the country, I had a cultural shock that, by the way, what you actually perform, more than half of the population of the planet Earth play very well. And it wasn't exotic, and then so there was an imposition of I need to portray that I'm very knowledgeable in Dastgah Moham, which I am because I studied it, but it wasn't part of my official formal music education. So I got into that field. So when I came here, long story short, I worked with a lot of rock and heavy metal musicians in Iran because I was in those scenes. I used to go to their gigs, underground obviously, and I really loved to be a part of that psyche of the society. And one thing that I realized throughout my scholarship, both empirically and theoretically, I realized that a lot of similar to what we've heard so far today, had a tension between local and international representation of their music. It is rock music, it is Western, it hasn't originated in Iran, there are no rock role models in Iran, so what they're creating It's like Plan Z of rock music. It doesn't matter. But that wasn't the case per se that I was looking at it. And I just want to say a little bit about the methodology that I use. I'm also similar to what Afari mentioned earlier. I'm very much into storytelling. Also, again, I think a lot of us Iranians in the room, that's how we are navigating our worlds. Like storytelling and narratives are the core of our upbringing, cultural upbringing, with poetry and music very much intertwined. And Farzi also mentioned that performance and composers are not two separate people. They're all in one. So I wanted to hear their stories, these rockers, and see how they are creating their music and sound. I wasn't really into the kinds of things they were actually creating, but how they're going about doing it. And not only that, not only the content of what they're telling me and how they are doing it, but also how they are telling me their stories. Because that was quite telling. So it added a different layer to the story that they were, like, it wasn't just about the content, but how they are going about telling me the content. Who they thought I was, what my role was. And the piece that you've heard is by Reza Vali from the band B-Band, which is a diasporic band. I say diasporic because he himself resides in LA, but the rest of the band reside in Iran, so they don't have rehearsal times per se. They do their music online. But the piece that especially they made about Tehran was exactly the kind of thing that I had also experienced. It's a dirty city, there's so much noise, everyone's sad and depressed, but everyone is happy and joyful. We hate traffic, but we love being involved in it and just pushing our horns on. Like, it's such a juxtaposition of, excuse my language, a lot of shitty shit, but a lot of awesome, awesome life. There's so much life in the city that he wanted to bring it forward with the band members. And then that's how also they went about creating that music. And what I realized, and also what I've heard so far today, is about all of us are not trying to be in the framework of Western classical music, Western understandings, or global North-centric, for lack of a better word, understanding of how life and music is from our aspect, our diasporic or not, or otherwise. But they're creating a whole nother framework. All our composers and the musicians that I've been working with, they're creating from nothingness, and nothingness as a space of generation, to bring forward the kind of sound, the kind of music that hasn't ever been. And it's not about telling our own story, this is time for you to listen who we are, but this is like what we do, take it or leave it, rather than justifying the kinds of music that are happening and the kinds of things they are doing. This is it, and then we've heard it last night as well. The energy in the room was like unforgettable, was undeniable. We don't have to justify what we do, but it's there. We have life, we put life into this, we put our struggles into this, and happy struggles. And I think the poeticism from last night and what we've heard today, I think how should I go about it? It's everything, it's exactly the nude body with the instrument. It's that, and it's there. You can enjoy being around it and then being involved and engaged with it or not. That's fine too. We are tired of saying who we are. We don't say that anymore. This is just that music. This is the vibe. This is the energy. This is the life that we have. And I think we're sharing it these days in the global situation. So, and I don't want to be very romanticizing what we're doing because there are lots of difficulties around it as well. But what we have is enough. And this is what the musicians that I've been working with are also telling me. And thank you for giving us the space today and yet last night to finally say that. It's very meaningful to be among this group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nassim John. You've said a lot of things. It's hard for me to put them together, but one thing I'll pull together is, again, part of the theme we talked about from the first part of our session together, of musicians finding themselves and scholars finding themselves at a nexus point, and having decisions to make about how they're going to do their work and to whom they're going to address their work. So it doesn't have to be a choice between this world and that world. It can be both at the same time. And I think that is the perfect segue to talking about the Golha Orchestra. Thank you, Hadi.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Hello, everyone. They hear me, no?
No, you should use the mic for the
Okay,
recording.
sorry.
Yeah.
I have illusions about how loud I am.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm very grateful and happy to be here in such esteemed company. I'm grateful to be included, and thank you very much to everybody at the U of T who has made this possible. So I'm going to talk about our Canadian Golha Orchestra, which is why I'm going to read you an opening statement, and I'm going to use we rather than I, and that we refer, okay, now I hear that the mic is on, and that we refers to yours truly, and then our Kushan Nakhai, our artistic director, and Neil Bashturek, our director of strategic planning, a board of director that supports us and holds us accountable, as well as a group of fierce advisors who without whom this project won't be possible. Okay. Canadian Golha Orchestra was founded in the spring of 2022 with a desire to revisit an orchestral language and style, Golha's style, in Iranian music that seemed trapped in recordings and memories of older generations. As soon as we set out to establish an orchestra to perform that music, we realized its immense artistic potential and the unique opportunity it presented to serve the Iranian community and the Canadian public alike. So we established Golha Initiative for Music and Culture as well, which is a federally registered nonprofit, to create a stable structure that ensures the ongoing life of the orchestra independent of the projects it gets involved in. The collective that runs the orchestra and its nonprofit backbone brings together expertise in the performance and research of Iranian and Western classical music, financial management, and public service. We believe by creating such a stability, we make an institutional home for exploring, performing, and researching Iranian music, as well as introducing it to the uninitiated Canadian audience. In our concerts, tours, recording projects, and workshops, we situate ourselves at the intersection of different worlds, where Western instruments, compositional and orchestration techniques meet Persian poetry and Iranian music's aesthetic model system and instruments. As its name suggests, our project is inspired by the Golha Orchestra of Radio Tehran, which was extremely popular across the country during the 1950s and 1960s. Yet, we are not a nostalgia project. Ours is an exploration of the age-long question of the old versus new in Iranian music. For over a century, numerous scholars and composers have engaged with these questions, and you've heard from some of them today on stage, have engaged with this question, and now we're trying to play a role in this musical, philosophical, social, political, and cultural inquiry. On the one hand, we ask ourselves, how would have Golha music sounded if it was composed today? And on the other, we await the new musical unknowns that our orchestra could perform in collaboration with composers who create new pieces for our collective, and that's a strategy we've been actively pursuing by commissioning composers to compose new pieces for us, including one that we will perform in our upcoming concert, April 23rd in Richmond Hill. Two pieces that we have chosen to play today, I believe, reflect many of the ideas that I just discussed. And I'm just going to talk about the first piece, and then we hear it, and then after that I talk about the second piece. The first piece, Nasim Bahari, was composed in 1946 by Ruhollah Khaledi, and then he arranged that and performed it with Radio Tehran's orchestra in 1964. The performance you're about to listen to and watch was done by Canadian Golha Orchestra and Sepideh Rais-Sadat, an internationally renowned singer of Iranian music, and absolutely a joy to listen to and work with. She's also a U of T person, just so that we know how many U of T connections there are. This performance is part of our, the performance you're about to watch, was a part of our Spring 2024 tour in Richmond Hill, Ottawa, and Montreal. Kushan Nafai revised the arrangement, our artistic director, revised the arrangement and expanded the final sections of the piece. As you can hear, Nasim Bahari is not just inspired by Iranian music, but is a piece of Iranian classical or traditional music in its really traditional sense, with its microtones and performance techniques. This was a new music when it was composed, as it was from the beginning composed to be performed with an orchestra, which is of course not native to Iranian music. And the orchestra was also put together and trained to perform this piece. So we see one aspect of that old versus new question in this piece.
یک شب
second piece that you're about to hear and listen to, Bengar, is a new composition by Saeed Kamju, and he arranged it especially for our project, and it was performed by Avar Ostamian's voice as part of our Fall 2024 tour in Waterloo and Toronto. As you will see in the video, this time around we experimented with an ensemble rather than a larger orchestra. Kamju's music is deeply rooted in Iranian traditional music, as he is a trained kamanche player, having studied with such masters as Ali Asghar Bahari. Bahari was his main teacher, and if you know Bahari's music and how traditional it is, you also know what level of traditional training we're talking about Kamju. In this piece, he not only explores a new palette of sounds, but also tries to draw heavy inspiration from Kurdish music and tambur maqams, pushing the envelope beyond the traditional territory of dastgah music. In Bengar and Nasim Bahari, we hope to show you how we are trying to renew the old question of old versus new, not only by focusing on what is performed, the music and its style, etc., but how music is made. It is not an accident that both singers you see are women, or that our ensembles made predominantly of female musicians. You will see the same pattern in our board of directors, where 4 out of 5 members are women. So I invite you to listen to this second piece as our exploration of music as both an artistic language and a socio-political world that needs renewing.
Thank you very much, Hadijan, for this terrific set of examples and for drawing our attention back to the issue of gender, which is, of course, very important everywhere, but also has a particular resonance for Iranians and in the field of Iranian music. Hadi did not speak about his dissertation research, so I will, which is about Iranian female instrumentalists within the realm of classical Iranian art music within Tehran. That's a very important subject that he's giving a lot of great space to in his dissertation. I bring up that because this is another theme of the second half of our presentation, which is the relationship between research and the kind of productions, academic, presentational or compositional. All of our panelists are researchers as well as creative individuals. That we'll see a really direct connection between research and composition in our next piece. Thank you, Kaveh. Take it away.
Hello to everyone. Salam. I'm so grateful and happy to be here. Thank you so much to University of Toronto, New Music Festival, Professor Palais. And I'm so excited and it's my honor to sit next to professors Nick Nafs and Anasi. What should I say?
We can play
Yeah.
this if you want. Do you want to play it and then talk?
Yeah, I want to talk briefly about what my career is and where it's come from. I had chance in my life to be first student and then assistant of the master, Mohammad Reza Vali. Our relationship is kind of Morido Moradi. I don't know the name in English.
Apprentice disciple.
Yeah, that one. And he had really impact on in my life. So I had chance. One of the highlights part in my life is that I had chance to travel Iran city by city, village by village, to record and research about Iranian regional music and music of tribes, different tribes and people. I love people, the life, not just Iran, everywhere, the culture, the normal life that we can see everywhere. For example, last night I want to make an example for last night. If you remember, during the animation, people just snapping because it's in their culture, it's in their body, as you mentioned. Iran is not a normal country. Yeah, really. What I mean is Iran is a Plato fallout. And influence on the other countries around, like Iraq, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Middle Eastern countries, Uzbekistan. So that's why Iran is important country from art and culture, because we can see the history and art and culture in the other countries that comes from Iran. Architecture, I don't know, piece of masterpieces, for example, in the mosques, or carpets, whatever. One of my research that I was in south of Iran, the city Bushehr. There is some villages around Bushehr. One of them is Risher. I was there. I was walking on the street, so I saw construction, but they are making this construction so with primitive technology. I don't know the name. I don't know exactly the name. Saruj. I think it's kind of bricks of Cali.
Yeah, it's mortar. The mortar made of limestone. Sticks together.
So as you see, the master is sitting down and pass the mortar to the other workers. There is a lever here, and they are passing to each other because they want to make to organize their work. They must singing, so they call it neyme. What is it? Work music. So they used to sing work music. Again, I love people. So I was looking at and I said, wow, it is masterpiece by nature. They are not trying to advertise or propaganda anything, but this is a masterpiece music that just very, very normal to wear, and even they do not know they are doing masterpiece, but they are actually. Have you played this? Yeah, this is masterpiece. Regarding to this, I want to mention, we had a conversation with Professor Vali and also Shahab. If you consider music of Iran as an ocean, Dastgah music is a little beach of this ocean. So the other parts and most important part is Iranian, I don't want to use folk music, but regional music or music of different tribes of Iran, because as you know, Iran is a multicultural country, so we have different languages, different Mazani, Turkish, I don't know, everywhere. This part of music that I use in one of my compositions, I call it Allah Mei Khani, because this chant, they call it Allah Mei. Khani means singing. Allah Mei Khani is a kind of chant that they are doing this folk music. So I am influenced by this music, and I use it in one of my compositions. Okay, have you? About ocean and Dastgah music. I don't want to make Dastgah نمیخوام موسیقی دستگاه رو ضعیف کنم. نمیخوام. I want to say we have really different kind of music in Iran that maybe even Iranian people do not have any idea about what are those. So we as an Iranian, I think, we should consider all of Iran, not just centrism. Because 100 years ago, you couldn't find any Dastgah music, for example, in Baluchistan or Bushehr, Bandar Abbas. Dastgah music belongs to just Tehran, Isfahan, Shiraz, Tabriz. these four cities. Why? Because they were capital of Iran during history. So when we are talking about, for example, Kurdish music, although we have common motifs, common figures in Dastgah music, for example, with Kurdistan, but they're totally different. For example, music of south of Iran, north of Iran, east, southeast, or even northwest Turkish music. They're totally different with Dastgah music. So me as an Iranian, everywhere of Iran is important for me, not just some centrism music, which I call it that. So maybe sometimes I had not confliction or opposition with some musicians, but I think Iran is everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your really insightful comments and presentations. I'm so glad we got to hear your music along with hearing your thoughts. So we have a few minutes now to start a panel discussion, which really I hope can just be a conversation between us. We've had many themes come up during the course of this conversation. You're free to introduce your own, or if you'd like, I can lead you off with a question. What do you prefer? Does anyone have something burning they would like to say?
I'll rely on you.
Okay, great, that's what you said, okay. So I think one thing that for all of your diversity that we all have in common here is that we are Iranian-born people working in Western institutions and in Western settings. I wonder if you can talk about how you see your presentations, how you see your compositional and presentational, perhaps research decisions shaped by the kind of audience that you imagine is going to hear it. Do you think about an audience of Iranians worldwide? Do you think about a non-Iranian audience? How do you think about that for the work that you do in the world? Perhaps Professor Vali could start.
With me?
If you don't mind.
Well, that's it. That's always the question. Well, my motto is
feedback.
You have a feedback, yeah. My motto is that musicians don't have fatherlands. So we actually belong to the whole world. And geographic borders doesn't mean anything in music. And so music actually, so the musical traditions and the cultures of the world are like oceans of the world, that they just flow to each other. And so there is trace of every culture in every other culture, and vice versa. So, in other words, for me, basically, the idea of connecting to the audience is really a dialogue of civilizations, and reaching the audience, which mainly influenced by European civilization, to recognize and connect with the other of civilizations. And in fact, concept I don't want to even call diversity, because diversity is, what is diversity? Basically, is that because we are a European culture, and then we really wanted very hard to connect with the other cultures? If we were not European, or European culture influence, we were Indian culture influence, and we were just Indians. Would that be diversity, that we go with the Europeans and try to, understand what Europeans? It's a very, very complex. It's a very, very complex concept, and I actually have written a book about it, and I have written, a whole article about it, and I don't want to go into that because it could become controversial. But I actually, for me personal, that those borders don't exist. So the fact that I'm so fascinated by Iranian music is, and I'm not just fascinated by Iranian music, I'm fascinated by Turkish music, I'm fascinated by, Arabic-speaking cultures, I'm fascinated of music of North Africa, of south of Spain. The fact that we are not trained in this because we basically are very much influenced by the cultures that came to the entire world at the end of, in the mid 18th century and 19th century by European colonialists, basically. And so if the Europeans would go and take the world on, let's say, 8th century, we would have, or 12th century, we would have a little bit of Guillaume de Machaut, or we would know about the music of medieval music. And I'm not saying this as a political statement. It's absolutely non-political. I'm just saying that the influence of that impact of the European civilization of the world is directly related to the Europeans, going actually and taking over the world in the mid of 18th century and the complete 19th century. And something that we have to come back and look at it without any prejudice and without any putting your hand up and putting anything without any debt to anybody and debt to this and debt to that. Enough of that. We need to actually come back and create create a discourse, not even a discussion about that discourse, a discourse of how the cultures actually relate to each other, and create a dialogue between civilizations. And what I really do is, and what I really strive is creating this dialogue in my music, creating dialogue between civilization. I really want my music, even if it's very Persian and very, has a lot of microtones and very strange and unusual for the musicians, to be played by non-Iranian musicians, because that's how I relate to them, and I enjoy it. It's a great happiness for me. Great happiness. I'm working tonight. Please come to the concert if you can. These are all the students of this great university, and I don't think they actually had any idea about what the microtones are in Persian music. I have recorded it, sent it to them, I work with them, and they're playing it better than Iranians. I'm not kidding you.
Really, wow. For the students.
I think Ustad Vali is talking about something very important that I'm happy to have other people speak as you wish on this topic, but one is the idea of intercultural dialogue or collaboration, and then there's the actual realization of it, which involves apparently a special app, to get the microtones and so on, right? We can talk a lot about the possibilities or the sort of utopian potential of collaboration, but doing it and doing it well is another level of labor. So yes, please go ahead.
I think it's a very important topic, and I agree with you, Maestro. It's just a matter of, I think, education more than anything else, but we have to learn from the society what's happening underneath. With all this negative side of social media that we are all aware of it, there are things happening that is actually positive. You see all these kids from around the world, they collaborate with each other. I'm not familiar that much with Instagram and things like that, but I know there are things that they actually work together, they play with each other, they release pieces from some musician from Africa, from Iran, from Turkey, and they don't make it difficult for themselves. So this is something I think it's important in the university, in an institution like this, that we can talk about this, and maybe we can learn about it. Because I feel sometimes in academia, which I am deeply involved with, at UCLA, it's like an elephant move. You know, it's just so difficult for them to understand what's going on around the world. And sometimes they're losing, you know, at the time and what's important at the time to understand what's going on, which they can actually affect the city they are located and the society. So, and the great example is what's happening over the past few nights here. I think this is something that, you know, the fact that we have two amazing professors here at this university, also a lot of students studying in this university, but also we have a second biggest population of Iranian after Los Angeles here. So these are things that we can learn from it. We should be aware of it, and meaning that, you know, we can attract a lot of Iranian coming, listen to not just only Iranian. When they come here, they hear the reason they came last night because they wanted to hear Persian music, but they started getting to know a little bit about the university, orchestra university. Then they get exposed to other musical culture, and this is something, again, it's a matter of education, and we just have to work so hard to make it happen.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah. Would you like to say something?
There's a lot to talk about. I was thinking about how music has two roles. One in the creation process, that as Ustad Vali mentioned, it's like as a medium, as a composer, that has duality in terms of identity. You root to a past which is such a massive ocean with all of these wonderful things that we like to call Persian, and I'm going to talk about the difference between Persian and Iranian in my mind. And then there is a face towards the future, and that brings, you know, time doesn't stop, the technology advancement, and all the interaction between people that happens so fast in this time and era that we are talking about as we are speaking. We are also talking about AI, you know, having the body of human in the future. God knows if they're going to be part of the audience or not. And then as a creator and as a creative person, you have one foot there, and you want to create your identity. I just remembered one of the people that I'm very much inspired by is Dr. Darush Safbat, a very great Iranian musician. As I explored this vast ocean, he mentioned about the music of Iran, or Persian music, being music of a spirit for connection. And the connection comes from within. So as a composer who has one foot here, one foot there, one is, you know, looking to the future and trying to explore, and one is to learn the past. To find that balance is the authenticity, and how it's important for me to find exactly how authentic I need to be towards whatever that I create, whether I want to send a message that is about a brick in a very small village in Iran, which was so powerful. I really was touched by your work. Thanks for sharing that, Kaber. Or it's a more global message. There is a very fine line between what we call Iranian, in my mind, my perspective, and what we call Persian. I think Iranian and Iran it has a limitation. It is connected to geographical matters that we can. They have quantity to it, but Persian. When we talk about the Persian, there is a quality behind it, and it's an idea that is more psychological, and it belongs to like we're talking about more than 4,000 of years of history, which is beyond the time and space.
Culture of Iran.
Exactly. So it's a culture of Iran, and Persian music, for example, to me, it's such a vast ocean. Again, it is Zoroastrian gods, it's a Kurdish, folk. It can be a Kurdish folk song. It's not just limited to Dastgah music. It is, a lullaby that is sung by a mother in a very, very far village in the south. It is the music of Los Angeles. It is the current, women who are singing and use their singing as a tool for political activities. So it's really a dynamic, great thing. And as a composer, it is really depends on which piece you want to create. And to me, creation comes in both ways. So one way is that we are affected by something that happens externally, an event or something historical, or maybe a poetry that we read, and we reflect our emotions to it through our music. And the other is a force that is inside, and that is like the work of whoever is an innovator in any stream, including music. For example, Marty Schaefer, or the works of Benjamin Britten or even Bartok, who are making, they continue a path, but they make an innovation, bringing folk for the first time to the orchestral music, or adding soundscape and experimenting with non-standard stage and spaces to do the music. I think I talked so much. Sorry about that, but
Great, thank you.
those were my thoughts.
Yes, thank you. I think Ustad Vali has a point.
Yeah, I just want to very quickly, I don't want to take my colleagues' time. It actually, it's something in terms of the structure of Iranian music. Iranian music is not one system. It's a very unique around the Middle East. And in fact, around the entire Asia is actually two systems. There is one system called Maqam, and that is a very, very old system that the roots of this goes back to the pre-Islamic, Persia. And it was until the end of 18th century, it was the Maqam system for thousand years. And then he has the Dastgah, which is a very actually young system, came at the end of the 18th century. I don't know, I'm not a musicologist. I don't know why this happened. But we have this dual system, and that dual system really is, this foundation of the entire music of Iran, the Iranian music as a whole. So when you go to the regional music, you're you're not working with Dastgah. Sometimes they live together, sometimes they are separate. But we have a dual system, which are called the Dastgah Maqam or the DM system. That's all I want to say.
Can I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, Professor Vali, that's, I forget that I need amplification. Again, sorry. Professor Vali, that's a very important point you just raised about how young the Dastgah system is. I think Amirhossein Pourjavadi's recent book actually deals with that, and he shows that how this Maqam system and this old system that you just mentioned sort of gradually evolves into what we today know as this half Dastgah, 7 Dastgahs and 5 hours. So it's a pretty young system, and as I think several of us today have pointed out, it's a system with its potentials, and it's a system with its significant limitations. Your point is very well taken. I think within the context of Iran, this diversity of cultural mosaic is something that perhaps gains attention and then goes to the background again and comes forward again. But I particularly believe after the events of Zan Zendegi Azadi uprising, where really the whole country was involved and a lot of sort of people from Kurdistan or Balochistan or Khuzestan participated in the uprising, both as Iranians and as Baluchs and as Kurds and things like that. It raised widespread awareness amongst in our national consciousness of how diverse this notion of Iranian is. And it's not centrism, I think Kaveh called it. Yes, that's very much the term. And I feel like as much as I love this notion to be called an Iranian, with everything shitty that comes with the current politics of Iran, still to be an Iranian, it is who I am, But at the same time, I feel this notion, you gotta constantly reflect on it, constantly renegotiate it, revise it, review it, and understand it from the beginning. And kind of reading history just shows it has always been as diverse as it is, today. It's not, it's not a new happening. You read the history, it has always been. And I feel like as soon as we just focus on the center, it's just you're stopping a river, and it's just gonna end up being a swamp and just like really stinky,
Something I want to add to this is that, Iran, we don't want to talk about the glorification of Iran, but before this country, before it has a state, it was a nation, and this is so important. What does it mean? I mean, everything, whenever we wanted to define culture and countries, we always have to, because all the knowledge created in the Western part of the world over the past few hundred years, and everything has to define in a way that is just, we understand what is country, what is a state. But you're dealing with the culture that indeed it was a state, it was a nation before the concept of state actually created. So all this conversation we have, this diversity that exists in Iran, it actually, you can trace them through music, and it's the most honest, it gives you the most honest answer, because when it's in the book and historian write about history, sometimes it can be biased, but music can tell you the truth, and it's very honest. So I encourage everyone to actually trace Iran through music, which is very honest.
It's a very inspiring point, which I will take to my graduate seminar on sound and music in the Middle East to make sure that I go beyond the Dastgah this time. I will say one of the challenges, so interesting to have this conversation about internal diversity within Iran, and then think about the different discourse of diversity that we encounter once we leave Iran and we become representatives of Iran to our respective fields. If all of you and I had stayed in Iran, we would simply be composers or academics. We wouldn't be Iranian composers and Iranian academics all the time in the same type of way that is required. There are costs and benefits that come with that kind of label. You have a certain platform from which to speak, a certain type of authority and connection that people assume about you, even if it's not deserved. Not about any of you, I'm thinking about myself. But at the same time, it can feel a little bit like a box that one is in, and you always have to be representing that. I think one of the things you often hear from creative artists, academics also, is that they wish they could be known simply for their work, and that their work should transcend. Right, this idea that I am a cosmopolitan individual, I'm beyond any particular place. Yet those things, we're always someplace, and we're always from someplace too. So we could talk about that if you like. I'm also mindful of the fact that we offered to take questions from the audience. So if somebody wants to respond, they can, or you can, yeah.
Thank you. I'll say it shortly because we want time to have a larger conversation. Just want to share an anecdote because I have been dealing with it in my scholarship a lot. Two things. One is that whenever that I'm discussing Iranian music education and musical learning situations in Iran, at least one reviewer in a peer-reviewed journal asks me to put the word Iran in the title of the scholarship. And what Farzi is mentioning, that we would like to go beyond the borders, as also Professor Vali is mentioning, that again boxes my scholarship into this is Iran, whoever is interested in Iran would read this article, rather than what I'm trying to say goes beyond the borders, is about humanity and interactions and relationship building. So that is one example. The second example is that, again, whenever my scholarship talks about Iran and Iranian music education and musical learning, I am being asked, again, at least by one anonymous reviewer, that you need to discuss, add a section about contemporary music education in Iran. And that is not the case, for example, someone writing from the US or someone from Canada or Northern Europe, Northern Western Europe. So I always have to make a case and struggle against this kind of a comment. I mean, now, thankfully, I'm at a position in my career that I can make that case and I say, I don't want to listen to this reviewer because this. And I can talk to the editor that this is a very bogus comment. Why, for example, K-12 education in the US should not say the US in the title, or they are not given a brief history of music education. So that is something that is constantly asked from me as a scholar born and raised in Iran and talking about Iranian music education. But what I'm trying to, also going back to the previous question, what is my audience? I started to actually get this platform that I have as a scholar within the field of music education to discuss not the fact that this is how we do it in Iran, but this is how it should be because of the things that are happening and how resourceful these people are. We need to change the entire framework of our field of music education, which has very Christian roots at its core. And this is what I'm trying to do with my scholarship. It has nothing to do with Iran, but also everything about Iran. And this is exactly why I do not need to talk about the current history of Persian music. So the number of times, as an English as speaking language, I had to paraphrase myself in my different articles. This is the history of music education, to the point that in one of my tenure reviews, one of the anonymous external reviewers said, Nassim keeps repeating herself. And it was a very interesting moment in my life that I am being asked to repeat myself in all of my articles, and I'm also being criticized for repeating myself in all of my articles. So this is a kind of tension that I work against within scholarship coming from music education in Iran. So that is the kind of audience that I work against and toward. One is the global field of music education, that I don't want to say this is music education in Iran and taking the boundaries and borders out of it, but also this is higher music education is my other audience that I would like to work for and against, because this is a platform that I have. I need to open those opportunities for other people coming from Iran, approaching me as a professor here, so I would love to open that space for them. Because I struggled so much, why should we keep this struggle going while we can open this conversation to ease for the rest of the generation to come in here? So I just wanted to mention that tension that I'm still to this day. But I just now can just drop the mic on them because I can. So.
And now we will drop the mic on you. Thank you so much, Nassim Jun. I'm going to hand this to somebody else. Norbert, can I give this to you or somebody? Okay, coming? Okay, we see your hand. All right, here it comes. Okay, thank you, Michelle.
Hi, hello, I'm Michelle Asai and I'm a postdoc here working on women in Western art music in Iran. So I'm among my own people. Thank you so much for today and for the panel. Sorry I missed about half an hour in the middle of it. With the deadline. There's a very useful term for what you just said about, we talked about being expected to represent our country, and it's burden of representation. it is a burden, it's a label. But on the other hand, I avoided it for a very long time. I worked on Russian and Soviet music, and I was constantly asked why would an Iranian work on the Russian and Soviet music and on Shakespearean music, why Shakespeare? So it is true, everybody expects it from us. But on the other hand, what I want to ask very, very honestly is, don't you think that actually gives us privileges? I mean, ever since now, I have changed my tune, not my tune, but I have now moved to Western art music in Iran, which combines what I love and what I represent. Doors open, touch wood, a little bit more. I've got a grant, a very, very competitive one from the European Commission. And I am 100% sure if I had applied for Shakespearean music in Russia, especially now, the Soviet Union, I would have not got the grant that I have got. So there are some privileges and responsibilities that come with it because people rely on us, what we represent. So that's one question I thought if I can ask the panel, and I heard quite a, especially from Shahab, for example, that you know, the kind of thing that you're not feeling like yourself when you were doing just modern Western art music and combining them gave you a unique voice. Doesn't it give us a unique voice that others don't have? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely, it's a privileged space, and that's what I'm very cognizant of, and that's why I'm saying that my audience is higher music education. I know why I'm here, and I know what it comes with a responsibility, and I'm taking this responsibility seriously. That's why I would like to bring in students who reach out to me to open this space for them. And some of you in the room know that, for example, I'm waiting for a master's student from Iran, brilliant music educator, Iranian woman, but the visa is not coming through. So it's an opportunity and a privilege, I can say. This is the way that they want to hear us. So we start there, and then we infuse what we actually have to say. I'm taking it this way because I haven't found any other way yet. But I'm hoping our students in the room and the panelists are also contributing to this. So let us just get in the room, and so we are not yet at the table, but once we are at the table, we can say what we need to say. So this is my thinking to this day.
I have something about this.
I'm sorry.
Please go ahead, Mike.
I want to say something very controversial. I hope you guys don't mind. But very simple. Everything is money. We are in a capitalist country. So I had an organization in Pittsburgh, and I was trying to fundraise. And I went online, and I wanted to see who give money, from 1 million up. There were 120 Jewish individuals, 80 Irish, about 30 Italian, and it was 1 Iranian, 1. Now you look at the political landscape in the United States, the senators are either Jewish or Irish or Italian. We don't have any influence. Why? Because we have not learned to do philanthropy. Philanthropy is not political. Everything starts with philanthropy. We have to learn as Iranians to be philanthropic. We have the Iranian community in the United States is one of the most wealthiest community in the United States. I don't know about Canada. And we have to start. I mean, we started last night. We start right now. Okay? If we get the money, we can actually do anything we want. That's how actually other organizations work. It's all money. I'm sorry, being so blunt.
No, I mean, I want to add something to this. This is a journey I've been working with Maestro in several projects in the US, and the important one is at UCLA. We have this concern, we wanted to create project, we know what we have to do, but if there is no money there, we can't do anything about it. So, this generalization of, hey, you're living in capitalist country and you have to refuse everything is related to. I don't agree with it. It's actually, there is a lot of beautiful values hidden in capitalism that you can find it as an individual who wants to create something. I started orchestra in 2021, and I called it Iran Shahar Orchestra, which is cultural Iran, and it was a non-profit. But we know in America there is no grant. There are, but they don't help us for this kind of project. But they don't create problem for you. Say if you want to do it, just go ahead. So I have to think so hard, sitting with Maestro and consulting, what can we do to actually survive? And we realized, okay, we have to have an audience for sure, so we cannot ignore that. We can't just perform for ourselves. Also, we have to get support from the community. Perhaps they can help us. But then we realize, okay, if we have done in the past, they are not attracted to this. So we have to think so hard what we can do to basically make them a little attracted to what we do. So again, we don't want to compromise our art, we don't want to compromise our music. So what we have done, we started inviting the musicians that we think they're virtuoso or they're great musicians to collaborate with the orchestra. But also this is directly related to the concept of what we do with the orchestra. And again, this whole thing attracted a lot of Iranians to the academia where we present this orchestra. And then they came, hey, we wanted to see this more and more. It's exactly what happened last night. So they came through and then they invested. Now we have Center for Iranian Music. Someone came and said, hey, I'm going to put 5 million. Now we have Center for Iranian. And I keep hearing from a lot of other individuals that they wanted to do this more and more. This concept of philanthropy between Iran and this is new, but it's growing. And this city is actually very important because there's so much potential into this. I know maybe we should not talk about this that much, but I think it's important. So you can achieve a lot if you're going to that direction. I 100% agree with you, Maestro.
May I add a comment here? Because you mentioned at your question something very, very interesting that about privilege as well as responsibility of the label Iranian. And today we talked about, with all the panelists, about how diverse is Persia, Persian music, Iranian. It's good to notice that we also live in a country that is very diverse in a global way. And there's so many other communities here in Canada as well. When you mentioned the responsibility versus privilege, I wanna set a personal example that was my experience. So as a composer who is a female and has the label of Iranian, I've been approached with so many ensembles and so many places to get a commission. Or when I'm applying for a grant. Yes, that's a privilege, but at the same time, once the commission is given to you, which is basically given to you, sometimes I question the person who commissioned me that don't make me doubt my art because of the label, because of my gender, or because of my ethnical background. Because I had to stay truth to what I create. Is this because the funding that, for example, your ensemble organization receives from the government, and you have to, tick some boxes that you have covered commissioning a female composer from blood ethnicity? So, but if you're placed in such a position, it brings the responsibility, which I think I made an example of it in Mitra. In another way, in an opposite way, I've been invited to sit in many juries and view the applications, and then you notice the wave of the newcomers and the variety of the applications. I'm sure you all know this. You talked about the education and people who want to study. I'm talking about the artistic creativity and the funding that Ustad Vali mentioned that is tied to money. So there is a very fine line that there even you become more responsible because you're invited to sit on a jury because they think you are a representative of the place you are from, which is a vast ocean, and then you have to just talk and judge applications. Some of them are from your community, and then there is a standards and your own self-values as an artist. And then sometimes you deal with this thing that I like to call exotification. That's what I have been experimenting with during my personal artistic journey. That music that is unknown, it's exotic for who is not knowing it. That's why we call it a cultural dialogue. So we have to educate each other. And then if I am not authentic, I can use a lot of things. So as a person who sits on such jury and is responsible to give fund to people, it's very important how much is your knowledge. And then knowing that artists coming with a certain authenticity and standards about the music that don't bring, for example, a written radif and then call it your composition because that's not authentic. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that is a challenge for us, I believe, who are sitting on this panel, as people who have 1 foot here and 1 foot there. It is more responsibility than privilege, I believe.
Thank you so much. Of course, there is also the thing that I don't know when everybody here has arrived in North America, but it's also the fact that some of our Iranianness is rooted in quite a few years ago. And Iranianness, the notion of Iranianness has changed and moved since then. So I find that more and more with the speak when I chat with my cousin who lives in Iran, and the words and the expressions that I use, which she thinks that are, just like how her grandparents talk now. So it's also that notion has moved, what we represent here, how much we keep in touch with Iran, and how much we're representing the Iran that we knew when we left, and how much we're representing the Iran as Iran is now. That, I think, is when it gets really, really problematic and complicated, because the more I talk to people in Iran, the more I find how it has come forward, how it's changed. Forward, I don't know, how it's changed is the word to say, and how it's different from what it was when I left. So that, I think, probably Nassim works more because you're in contact probably with Iran, but it is quite a scary thing to see, when somebody says, say something in Persian. What I say in Persian, unless I'm reading something of Hafiz and say that is a poem, otherwise I'm basically, at that moment I always feel I'm representing my language, and I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong.
Sorry, I will very quick. Hence diasporic studies. Also, we have it in education that the whole notion of a cultural barrier to teaching a cultural music is very problematic, because depending on when that person left their region, changes the whole conversation. And that's a very dynamic conversation and scholarship already in music education. So absolutely, it's not an abstract entity out there. It's ongoing, so it lives. And but diasporic Iranian community also lives. So that's something that we could pay more attention to, especially what Shahab was saying. This city is ripe and fertile for these kinds of conversations, because more and more people are coming in for all the reasons we know. Anyways.
Thank you so much. I see some hands over here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Puria. I'm a Master of Music Technology student here at U of T. Thank you so much for this event and also the event last night. I really enjoyed it. But I'm going to mention an element here that I feel was kind of missed or overlooked throughout the discussion, and that is the audience of music inside Iran, the Iranian audience of music inside Iran. Because as Shahab just mentioned, we are just so much obsessed with making our music attractive for the people that are giving us money. Of course, we need to make some compromises, but I think, as also Kaveh mentioned, that we love people, also he loves people, and I think when we get something from the people from different regions of Iran, we eventually need to pay them back by kind of doing something that would interest them as well. My question for all of you is that at what point of your creation do you consider the audience of Iranian music within Iran, if you ever?
I'm going to pause on that question and take the second question. There was another hand, right? And then we can answer those because we're coming close to the end of our 3-hour session, so we can answer, you can take your pick of those. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mohammad Aman. Tar player from Azerbaijan. I studied Conservatory of Azerbaijan, and I'm interested in knowing your opinion about maqam music in Iran, general in any part of Iran. We have microtonals, and this has been a long discussion between all the teachers that when we want to write a symphony or opera, we cannot include the microtonals, the quarter tones, because it doesn't fit into the instructions how to make harmony. I know Dr. Vali has done a lot of effort in this way to write microtonal music, harmony. And my question is, how is it developing in U of T and other universities? Because I was graduated 10 years ago, so I'm a bit away from the academics. Is there any hope that we are getting close to be in the books of the harmony and instructions, like in the future, we can formally create a symphony or opera in any of maqam music of Iran, doesn't matter from Tabriz, Tehran, or any part of Iran, that anybody in the world can follow this instruction and write harmony and get into the books. I would like to know your opinions. Thank you.
Okay, so 2 questions.
Can I answer the first question?
Go ahead.
I actually specifically mentioned that no compromises in music when you're actually creating, but we have to look for other solution to attract people, and that people is actually, I don't make them separated from people in Iran. It's the same for me because right after the revolution, we had this toughest journey. Right after the revolution, literally they banned music. And for 2 years, these, idiots, they were even breaking instruments on the street like Taliban. So dealing, with issue like that in Iran, that has thousands of years of, cultural civilization, it was tough for these people. But now you look at it, after 46 years, every corner in Iran, in Tehran, there is a private music school. And there is a satellite, I saw this several years ago, it's like 24 hours, channel. These kids from around Iran, different villages, they send videos from their own standard, but they actually play Persian classical music or, regional music, whatever. But they have this hunger to present themselves and learn about Iranian music. And I have to tell you, they are in the right direction, and this is not something that we have to do something for them. They are in the right direction. The concert, the economic situation in Iran is very tough, but there is concert, it's sold out. Like, I have a friend, he has this concert for 30 nights, and it's very expensive, but it's every night it's sold out because they are, they're hungry to learn about the music, to learn about the culture, and this is something that we have to learn from them, not them. So this is my answer to you.
keep forgetting this. Sorry, again, illusions about my power of my voice. Okay, I totally agree with Shabda what you said about the audience in Iran. They're doing their musical life, and what mostly we are concerned with is the audience here. And with audience here, I should say, in our experience with Canadian Golha Orchestra, of course there is a negotiation, ongoing negotiation, and you have to be considerate of what they like and how much push you can do. But at the same time, we've also found the audience here very receptive and generous. In the first season of our concert, which was 23-24, if I'm not wrong, around 30% of our income came from a small, medium, or large community donations. And that's around over, if I'm not wrong, around $20,000 in total, or maybe a little bit more. So community does require you to constantly negotiate with them and consider them, but at the same time, they won't go mad. You know, they understand that, okay, they don't hire you to please them. They understand that, okay, I come to the concert, you play some of the songs that I'm here to hear, but I also wait for your bengar. You know, the piece that I perform. That night, I was sitting at the very back of concert hall, and just to observe the audience. I was very worried about this piece, Bengar, and we had another piece, Maqam Navai, which Kusha rearranged a performance of Haj Qurban Soleimani. I didn't know how the audience would react. They, you know, khadang, in Persian we say, just really focused on the sound, and it made I was like, yes, this is why we live for, to understand that our audience is with us there, and that's wonderful thing. The other thing I want to answer just very shortly to the second question. I mean, I don't know which books you're talking about, in terms of using microtones in harmony and orchestra. I think it's been there, done that kind of situation at this point. I think we heard some microphones last night from you, and also with Canadian Golha, we always perform. We performed Segah with them in fall, you know, which is it's as microtonal as it gets, you know. And of course, you got to do a smaller ensemble, maybe, but it's
was in a big scale, getting into the book, writing the instruction to teach the students, the future students, how to write.
I mean, the people who are writing these, yes, I understand, but the people who are writing these harmonies using microtones are students of somebody. You know, Kusha wasn't around when Vaziri was around, you know, and then, or Koda as well. So these people looked into the works of likes of Ustad Vali, and they learn and they expand. I think, again, I don't think people are teaching microtone, like Iranian music harmony in Vienna, but I also don't know if we should care about that, you know.
May I make a, because this has been one of my major concerns, and I just wrote a book, which is not the same book that you had it last night. It's a book that just published by Mahur called Introduction to Iranian Polyphony. Let me put it this way. The European polyphony, I'm going to try very, very specific and very short. European polyphony went from horizontal polyphony of the medieval polyphony and also the polyphony of the Renaissance to vertical polyphony at the beginning of the 18th century. And so this vertical polyphony it has its own structure, it has equal temperament, they had to actually push the intervals together. You had the concept harmony, which was not really a major concept of figured bass, that this moves. And at the same time, something political happened. Although I'm not looking at it from a political angle. I'm just putting it as a musical angle. Europeans actually took over all over the world. When I say European, I actually include the Russians. Russian took all over the Asia, don't forget. And so they brought this music into the world. And this music and this type of education, it came with the Europeans. And it is based, it's a fundamental of the education. And honestly, I have to say, I'm telling my own opinion, this system has nothing to do with Iranian music. Because Iranian music fundamentally is horizontal, it's not vertical. There is no concept of harmony. But there is a polyphony. And we have, if you want to know polyphony about the music of Iran, now the question is, does European music has anything to do with Iranian music? Of course it does. But you have to go 600 years back to the 8th century. When you go to 8th century, then you see what is the relationship between European music and Iranian music. Not in the music of 18th century. So we actually have to turn the trumpet and play it from the other side. Let's put it this way.
I was waiting to say, and then we can go to you after.
Thank you. Yep, but everyone says everything. I want to just answer the first question. I think we composers do not compose to attract people. Music must speak by itself. So music must be attracted by the nature. So, for example, me as a composer, I do not compose anything to attract someone to give me money. I don't need money. It doesn't mean that I'm rich. I'm not rich, but I'm not going to going through trends, because trends means that you are doing some composition, even in pop music, rock music, rap, whatever. Different genre. You are going to go to trends to attract a group of people. So I think me as a composer, it's not a good idea to follow trends, but the audience will attract and get your point when you have good composition and when you have good music, and it can speak by nature. For the second question, Professor Vali speaks very good, and also Shahab Jan, Vali, I'm sorry, but
It's okay.
yeah. Sorry, in parentheses, it was so funny when I was working with orchestra. I always said, okay, violondo, like, it was so fun. I can encourage you to introduce lots of Iranian composers who they created their harmony, which is not related to Western harmony, because Western classical harmony is based on a tierce interval, so which you cannot find any third interval in Persian music. Also, I think in Middle Eastern music, because based on quartal and quintal modes. So I think the combination between, for example, Azerbaijan music, Fikret Amirov, or these other composers, because they are influenced a lot by Russian music. So I think you cannot find it in Iranian music to combine it with harmony as a Western point of view.
Also, I wanted to mention that the Russians, because of the Russian influence in what is now the Republic of Azerbaijan, all of the intervals of Russian, the North Azerbaijan, it's all tempered. They're all into equal temperament. And there has been studies done by Iranians that show how different is the intervals of the Azerbaijani tar from the Republic of Azerbaijan and what the tar is in the south, in the Iranian Azerbaijan. Iranian Azerbaijan has actually kept its own historical intervals. And because of the influence of the Russians, all of the intervals, most of the intervals in the tar, Azerbaijani tar of the north, is actually temperate. And this idea that we have to create this, symphonies and so on, we have it kind of putting the Azerbaijani music into the box of European concept. And that's a Russian, that's what the Russians did with not only with the music of Azerbaijan, also with the music of Kazakhstan and music of Tajikistan. And the damage that they have done, it's really sometimes is unreturnable. But we are really lucky that we didn't have that in the music of Iranian Azerbaijan.
I'm going to invite Afarin to make our final comment of the afternoon.
Well, thank you so much. A very quick comment regarding your question, the second question about the use of the magam or other Persian style of music in opera. I was involved with actually experimenting amalgamation of Persian music with the Western operatic singing, where we created Forbidden Opera in 2018 with Tapestry. And what we did was exactly to use a Persian ensemble of tar, percussions, as well as ney, with opera singers who are used to sing in the system of West, and their ears didn't know, even maybe not at the beginning recognize the quarter tones, and it was a very fun experience. But we did it, and it is doable without the harmony to create even such genre of music. I can explain it later to you if you wanted to. And thank you for mentioning that in creation mode, I don't think we care about the audience, that whose target audience is. That back to the first question. I think the audience attraction comes to the second phase of giving life to music, which is the performance phase. And that's not job of a composer. The job of a composer is to figure out what is the impact of the music, why is the music is created, and just create the music.
It's a perfect note on which to end our symposium. Thank you so much to our panelists and to our audience members for a great